Francis Davidson Frankie Fraser, better known as Mad Frankie Fraser, was an English gangster and criminal who spent a total of 42 years in prison for numerous violent offences. Mr. Fraser was part of Britain's underworld between the 1940s and 1960s. He was a known associate of gangster Billy Hill throughout the 1950s. He had 10 years added to a sentence he was serving in 1967, along with the Richardson brothers in the torture trials, which were the longest trials in British criminal history. Mr. Fraser was born in Cornwall Road in Waterloo, London on the 13th of December 1923. He was delivered by his maternal grandmother, the youngest of 5 children. Mr. Fraser grew up in a working class, poverty-stricken family. His mother, Margaret, was of Irish and Norwegian ancestry. His father, James Fraser, born in 1885, was half Native American. Mr. Fraser's father worked hard, long hours as a wood sawyer at the local cricket bat markets for around £2 a week. At the age of 5, he moved with his family to a flat on Walworth Road in Elephant and Castle. Although his parents were not criminals, Mr. Fraser turned to crime at age 10 with his sister Eva, whom he was close to. He attended St. Patrick's Roman Catholic School in Waterloo. Mr. Fraser was a deserter during World War II, on several occasions escaping from his barracks. It was during the war that he first became involved in serious crime, with the blackouts and rationing combined with a lack of professional policemen due to conscription, providing ample opportunities for criminal activities such as stealing from houses while the occupants were in air raid shelters during the Blitz. In 1941, aged 17, he was sent to Borstal for breaking into a Waterloo hoistery store, then given 15 months prison sentence at HM Prison Wandsworth for shop breaking. Such were the criminal opportunities during the war. Mr. Fraser later joked in a television interview many years later that he had never forgiven the Germans for surrendering. In 1942, while serving a prison sentence at HM Prison Chelmsford, he came to the attention of the British Army. Although he was conscripted, he later boasted that he never once wore the uniform, preferring to ignore the call-up papers, desert and resume his criminal activities. After the war, Mr. Fraser was involved in smash and grab raids on a jeweller, for which he received a 2-year prison sentence, served largely at HM Prison Pentonville. It was during this sentence that he was first certified insane and was sent to Cane Hill Hospital before being released in 1949. During the 1950s, his main occupation was a bodyguard to the well-known gangster Billy Hill, part in more bank robberies and spent more time in prison. He again certified insane whilst at HM Prison Durham, and this time sent to Broadmoor Hospital. Afraid of being heavily medicated for bad behaviour, Mr. Fraser stayed out of trouble and was released in 1955. In 1953, he allegedly hit legendary hangman Albert Pierpoint when he was on his way to execute Derek Bentley, who was wrongly convicted of the murder of a policeman. In 1956, the mobster Jack Spot and wife Rita were attacked, on Mr. Hill's say-so, by Mr. Fraser, Bobby Warren and at least half a dozen other men. Both Mr. Fraser and Mr. Warren were given 7 years for their acts of violence. Although invited to take part in the Great Train Robbery, he declined as he was already on the run from the police. It was the early 1960s that he first met Charlie and Eddie Richardson of the Richardson gang, rivals to the Krays twins. According to Mr. Fraser, it was they who helped him avoid arrest for the Great Train Robbery by bribing a policeman. Together they set up Atlantic Machines Fruit Machine Enterprise, which acted as a front for the criminal activities of the gang. Frankie Fraser teamed up with the Richardson gang in the mid-1960s. In 1966, Mr. Fraser was charged with the murder of Richard Hart, who was shot at Mr. Smith's club in Catford, while other members, including Jimmy Moody, were charged with affray. The witness changed his testimony and the charges were eventually dropped, although Mr. Fraser still received a 5-year sentence for affray. He had always maintained that, while he fought with Mr. Hart, he did not shoot him. He was also implicated in the so-called torture trials, in which members of the gang were charged with burning, electrocuting and whipping those found guilty of disloyalty by a kangaroo court. Mr. Fraser himself was accused of pulling out the teeth of victims with a pair of pliers. In the trial at the Old Bailey in 1967, he was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. Mr. Fraser's 42 years served in over 20 different prisons in the UK were often coloured by violence. He was involved in riots and frequently fought with prison officers and fellow inmates. He also attacked various governors. He was one of the ringleaders of the major Parkhurst prison riot in 1969, spending the following 6 weeks in prison hospital owing to his injuries. Involvement in such activities often led to his sentences being extended. Whilst in Strangeways, Manchester, in 1980, Mr. Fraser was excused boots, as he claimed he had problems with his feet because another prisoner had dropped a bucket of boiling water on them after Mr. Fraser had hit him. He was allowed to wear slippers. Constant troublemaker in the prison, attacking governors and warders over perceived injustices, which inevitably resulted in floggings, bread and water, and the loss of remission. Mr. Fraser had by this time been certified insane on 3 occasions. The first came when he was in the army during the Second World War. The second time was when he was sent to Cane Hill Psychiatric Hospital in Coldstone, Surrey, and a third when he was transferred from Durham prison to Broadmoor. Mr. Fraser was released in 1988 and almost immediately served a 2-year sentence for receiving stolen goods. On his release, he was determined to write his memoirs. Mad Frank, which was written in 1994, went on to sell around 100,000 copies, and it was his first successful series. Possessed with a ready wit and a good report, he followed this up with a stage performance both in the East and West End, where he appeared with his then companion of 10 years, Marilyn Wisby, the daughter of the great train robber Tommy Wisby. In 1996, he was cast as a gang leader, Pop's Den, in the film Hard Men, which premiered at the London Film Festival. Mr. Fraser was a celebrity, appearing on television shows such as Operation Good Guys, Shooting Stars, and the comedy show Brass Eye, where he said Noel Edmonds should be shot for killing Clive Anderson, an incident invented by the show's producers, and writing an autobiography. In 1996, he played his friend William Donaldson's Guide to Marbella in the infamous BBC Radio 4 series A Retiring Fellow. In 1999, he appeared at the Jermyn Street Theatre in London in a one-man show, An Evening with Mad Frankie Fraser, directed by Patrick Newley, which subsequently toured the UK. He also appeared as East End crime boss Pop's Den in the feature film Hard Men, a forerunner of British gangster movies such as Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, and had a documentary made of his life, Mad Frank, which was released as part of a DVD, the Ultimate Gangster DVD, which featured crime figures such as Charlie Bronson, John McVicker, Paddy Joe Hill, Albert Redding, Dave Courtney, Roy Shaw, Norman Parker, Marilyn Wisby, and the act victim Eric Manson. The programme was also shown on the Crime and Investigation and Biography channels in the UK and was directed by Liam Galvin. London-based production company Classic Media Entertainment has secured the film rights to Mad Frankie's life. A feature film production was currently under development with Mr. Fraser's endorsement. In his later years, Mr. Fraser led a £45 a head minibus tour of London's gangland hotspots, including the scrap metal yard from which his friends Charlie and Eddie Richardson ran their South London crime empire, and the Blind Beggar pub. In 1991, Mr. Fraser was shot in the head from close range in an apparent murder attempt outside the Turnmills clubs in Clerkenwell, London. Part of his mouth was shot away in the incident. He refused to discuss the shooting with the police, stating that if you play by the sword, you've got to expect the sword as well. Mr. Fraser's wife, by whom he had 4 sons, died in 1999. The first of 3 of Mr. Fraser's sons, Frank Jr., David and Patrick, followed to an extent in his footsteps. His 4th son, Francis, in Mr. Fraser's joking words, let me down, having no criminal career at all. Grandson, Tommy Fraser, is a professional footballer and formerly captain of the League 2 side Port Vale. Another of Mr. Fraser's grandsons, Jane Fraser, also spent a short time with Bristol Rovers. Another grandson, Anthony Fraser, was being sought by police in February 2011 for his alleged involvement in an alleged £5 million cannabis smuggling ring. Fraser was a resident at a sheltered accommodation home in Peckham, South London. According to Eddie Richardson, Mr. Fraser had Alzheimer's disease for the last 3 years of his life. In June 2013, the 89-year-old Mr. Fraser was served with an antisocial behaviour order by police after a row with a resident. On the 21st of November 2014, he fell critically ill during leg surgery at King's College Hospital and was placed into an induced coma. On the 26th of 2014, Mr. Fraser died after his family made a decision to turn off his life support machine. Frankie Fraser lived his life like a blunt instrument, loud, violent, and unapologetically criminal. Born into poverty in Waterloo in 1923, Mr. Fraser was stealing by the time he was 10 and fighting the system before he ever knew what rules he was breaking. War didn't slow him down, it gave him cover. While London cowered in bomb shelters, he crept through the dark, breaking into homes and robbing shops. Prison followed, then Broadmoor, then more prison, and so on. The rhythm of chaos he carried for over 4 decades. He wasn't just a foot soldier. In the underworld of the 1950s and 60s, Mr. Fraser's name became a name people whispered. He worked with Billy Hill, carved out his place alongside the Richardson gang, and made his reputation through extreme violence, torture, assaults, riots. Whatever it took. The establishment called him insane more than once and locked him up accordingly. But Mr. Fraser wore madness like a badge of honour, turning his name, Mad Frankie, into a brand recognition. By the time the trials came in the late 60s, the stories about Mr. Fraser were already urban legend. Teeth pulled with pliers, beatings handed out without hesitation, some true, some exaggerated, all believable. Yet, he outlived most of his contemporaries. While the Krays died in prison, Mr. Fraser transitioned from gangland relic to pop culture oddity. He wrote books, did talk shows, acted in gangster films, and led gangland tours through his old haunts. Even a close-range shooting in 1991 blew part of his mouth off, didn't shut him up. Took it like he took everything else, as the price of playing the game. In the end, it wasn't the bullets or the rival gangs that stopped him. When he died in 2014, aged 90, Frankie Fraser had spent nearly half his life in prison, and all of it being exactly who he wanted to be, a criminal through and through. He never once apologised, and maybe that's the most telling part of his story. Frankie didn't care if you liked him, he just wanted you to know he was never afraid.